Well, let's speak now to Yonah Bob, who's a senior military correspondent at the Jerusalem Post. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. So there's some quite harsh criticism of the military in this report, isn't there?
Yeah, look, this wasn't one error. This was repeated errors over at least a decade, that every single time there was a sign that maybe Hamas actually would be a threat, might try a large invasion like they saw, they said, oh, this isn't really serious. Hamas would never do this. This is a fantasy. They're just doing this for training purposes. The Israeli military actually had a document in 2022 called the Walls of Jericho Plan that shows exactly what Hamas was going to do. And there were Israeli intelligence officers debating, is it real, is it not? And they poured cold water on it. The document didn't even get to the IDF chief of staff. We heard directly from him that he did not have the document the night before or at any point in time. So the intelligence really just didn't take Hamas seriously enough. And that's only one of the errors. There's so many errors I could talk about.
And what about the response itself once the attack happened? Tell us about what they've described as kind of failings there.
Right. So even once you are taken by surprise and you have 767 soldiers against 5,000 soldiers, right? 5,000 Hamas soldiers, terrorists, whatever you want to call them. So you're outnumbered, but the Israeli army has 500,000 soldiers and the most powerful air force in the region. Why didn't they send the air force to bomb Hamas as they're crossing the border? Why didn't they send, if not 500,000 all at once, 2,000 soldiers, 3,000 soldiers in the next hour? So the plans were not there. They just had no plan for a mass invasion. The biggest amount of, Hamas people they thought might come across the border might be 70, something like that. And so they weren't ready. And then there was a commander on the ground, General Abi Rosenfeld, who wouldn't admit to his superiors that he had been beaten already around 7 in the morning. So they didn't figure out until about 12 noon that he was completely beaten. And so they start sending big reinforcements around 11 a.m., 1 a.m. Almost all of the 1,200 Israelis, mostly civilians, and almost all the 250 hostages are already dead or taken hostage into Gaza by 12 noon. So by the time they're sending real reinforcements, it's too late.
And tell us about the reaction that there's been to what is it quite a kind of open discussion about military failings. How's that gone down with the Israeli public?
Look, at this point, it's actually pretty politicized because there's a large amount of the Israeli public, let's say the opposition, the critics of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who say, where's the state inquiry? You were the prime minister for something like 15 years. There was a little year and a half break in the middle, but basically almost the whole time. And they say, Netanyahu, you were the architect of containment, that Hamas could be contained, that it could be deterred. Israel under Netanyahu facilitated Qatar giving millions of dollars a month to Hamas to basically keep them in power and in order to weaken the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. So this was sort of your, national security strategy. There could have been a different strategy. Diplomacy, trying to cut a deal, strengthening the Palestinian Authority, weakening Hamas, or even toppling Hamas. There were other wars between Israel and Gaza where they could have toppled Hamas, especially, let's say, in 2014. On the other hand, there are people who say, no, this was the Israeli military's fault. It was their job to give the proper intelligence warning to the prime minister, to the government. And since they missed it, they need to be blamed for it. I will say that almost all of the top Israeli military officials, intelligence officials who were involved have already resigned. Netanyahu has not opened a state inquiry.
So there have been resignations, but are there any other changes proposed to try and tackle perceived weaknesses?
Yeah, so the biggest change I would say is that the intelligence community in Israel is going to hire different kinds of people. They have not had multidisciplinary academics in intelligence in a while, and they think that some of those people might have been more skeptical, not enough Islamists or people who study Islamists to understand sort of the perspective of somebody who might have more a messianic perspective. Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, they thought he was deterred, and it turns out he really believed that Hamas might be able to topple Israel. They had no chance of toppling Israel. What they accomplished militarily was, you tip your hat to them from the Israeli perspective. They achieved surprise, but that was the most they were going to get. And then, Gaza's been destroyed. But he thought that they could win. And so somebody needs to be able to understand that. And if they have bubble, group thought, let's say, in the Israeli intelligence community, so they need more diverse perspectives, you're going to see different kinds of people being brought into the Israeli intelligence community.
Yonah Bob, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. Thank you.